I thought I had it all: my beautiful wife, Sarah, a steady job, and a home we built together. We had been married for 6 years, and while no marriage is perfect, I believed ours was pretty solid. Sure, there were the usual ups and downs, but we always managed to pull through. Then everything started to shift, like a storm brewing on the horizon. It began with little things, subtle, almost imperceptible changes in Sarah's behavior. She started spending more time away from home, claiming it was for her volunteer work with veterans at the local VA hospital. I respected her dedication, even admired it. After all, I was a veteran too, wounded in combat. I thought we were on a common path of healing, both of us finding purpose in the struggle of recovery, albeit in different ways. But as I lay in my hospital bed, nursing my combat wounds, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There were nights when she'd come home late, the kind of late that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. She'd say she was at meetings or helping organize events, but the texts she answered while I was with friends seemed to come from a different world. The laughter, the sudden silences, the way her eyes lit up when she was on her phone, all of it felt strange. I brushed it off at first. I wanted to believe the best of her. Yet my heart couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling of doubt. Then one fateful afternoon I discovered the truth. I was home, recovering from surgery, when I saw her phone buzzing on the counter. I shouldn't have, but I picked it up. I told myself it was just a quick check. I was just being cautious. What I saw shattered everything. The messages were explicit, playful, and filled with intimacy that should have belonged solely to us. They were from Mark, the leader of her veteran support group. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. She had been cheating on me, right under my nose, while I was fighting to recover from my wounds. My heart raced as I read through the messages, the betrayal etched into each word. I couldn't believe it. It was like I was watching a movie, but this was my life. I felt sick, my stomach churning as I tried to comprehend the impact of what I had just found out. I had trusted her. I had been vulnerable, healing in a place that was supposed to be safe. In that moment, I made a choice. I wasn't going to confront her yet. I needed to process this. I spent the next few days in a whirlpool of anger, sadness, and disbelief. I was part of a brotherhood of veterans who understood my pain, who helped me find strength in recovery. Yet here I was, alone in my heart, grappling with the betrayal of the person I loved most. Each day felt like a battle of its own, fighting my way through the memories of our happier times while coming to terms with the reality of her deceit. Finally, I knew I had to confront her. I had to hear it from her own lips. I prepared myself, anger bubbling just below the surface. The day she walked through the door, I was ready. I had rehearsed the conversation in my mind 1,000 times, but nothing could prepare me for the clash that followed. As I stood there, waiting for her to notice me, I realized I was holding my breath. When she finally looked up, the jovial smile she wore faded, replaced by a flicker of fear. I told her I wanted to talk, and the room felt instantly colder. I could see her calculating, trying to decide how to play this. I was ready for her lies and excuses, but nothing could brace me for the weight of her denial. "Why don't you just trust me?" she said, eyes wide, voice shaking slightly. "You know how busy things can get at the VA. You can't expect me to always be available." Her words were laced with thinly veiled frustration, as if I was the one in the wrong. "You think I wouldn't know? I saw the messages, Sarah. I know you've been with Mark," I spat out, my voice thick with emotion. Her face paled and she stumbled for words, but I was ready for the onslaught of excuses. "I can't believe you would invade my privacy like that. You need to understand how hard this is for me," she shouted, her anger rising, a smoke screen for the truth I had uncovered. In that moment, I felt a mix of anger and heartbreak. I wanted to scream at her for betraying me while I was vulnerable. Instead, I felt the tears welling up. I didn't want to fight, I wanted answers. I needed to see how deep the wound cut, but all I got were half-truths and more lies. Each word from her mouth felt like a dagger, twisting deeper into my trust. I had thought we were partners in this life, but how could we be partners if she was so willing to betray me? Her excuses sounded hollow and rehearsed, and I could barely recognize the woman I had married. After hours of back and forth, with her spinning tales and me lobbing questions, I realized this was no longer the woman I had loved. This was a stranger defending her actions with manipulation and deflection. I could feel my heart breaking, piece by piece, and it hurt more than any physical wound I had ever suffered. That night I lay awake, replaying our confrontation over and over. How did I get? How had the woman I adored become a source of such pain? I understood now that I needed to decide what to do next, but the path was clouded by confusion and hurt. The days that followed were dark. I felt untethered, spiraling in my thoughts and emotions. I needed clarity, and as I stared at the ceiling, I knew I was facing one of the toughest decisions of my life. How do you move forward after such betrayal? I reflected on my journey, both in healing my physical wounds and navigating the emotional scars that this betrayal had left behind. It was painful to accept, but I realized I had to find a way to reclaim my life, my identity, and my heart. I needed to choose my path forward carefully, and it wouldn't be easy. The anger I felt could either consume me or fuel my determination to regain control. I was a veteran after all. This was just another battle to fight. But this time, the enemy was the very person I had once vowed to cherish. The days drifted into weeks, and I found myself in a fog of disbelief and anger. Each morning, I woke up with the weight of betrayal pressing down on my chest, a reminder of the shattered trust that lay between Sarah and me. I tried to focus on my recovery from my combat wounds, but every distraction led back to thoughts of her infidelity. I felt like a soldier caught in a war without any clear enemy. How could I attack a betrayal that was so personal, so close to my heart? I started distancing myself from her. I would go to physical therapy and engage with my fellow veterans, sharing stories and laughter that felt genuine. I found solace in their camaraderie, a brotherhood that honored true service and understood the struggles of recovery. However, every time I returned home, the atmosphere felt suffocating. Sarah would try to engage me, but I was no longer the same. I had built a wall between us, a defense mechanism shielding me from further hurt. One evening, after another long day, I came home and found Sarah sitting on the couch, her face drawn and pale. She had obviously been crying. A part of me felt cold seeing her in such distress, but the other part felt vindicated. I had spent so long battling my own emotions, and now the tables had turned. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean for things to turn out this way." I crossed my arms, my anger bubbling just below the surface. "You didn't mean for what to happen. You didn't mean to cheat on your husband while he was healing in a hospital. You didn't mean to betray my trust." Her eyes widened, and for a fleeting moment, I could see the guilt flicker across her face. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Instead, she reached for my hand, but I pulled away, disgusted that she thought she could bridge the chasm between us with mere touch. "I'm trying to understand why," she continued, her voice breaking. "I was feeling so lost after you got hurt. I thought I was helping the veterans, but I guess I got too close to Mark." "Too close?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "You mean you had sex with him? You can't just brush it off as getting close." She flinched at my words, tears streaming down her face. "I know it sounds bad, but I felt like I was losing you. I was scared and alone. I was just trying to cope." Her excuses played like a broken record. My mind and I wanted to scream. The woman I thought I knew had morphed into someone who would rationalize betrayal instead of taking responsibility. I couldn't understand how she could justify her actions while I was struggling just to regain my strength. "Coping?" I asked, incredulous. "You coped by cheating. You didn't even think about how I would feel. How could you do this to me?" "I didn't think," she shouted back, frustration evident in her voice. "I just made a mistake, okay? I didn't plan for any of this. I wanted our marriage to work, but I felt so alone. I didn't think you would understand." Her words cut deep. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a choice. I felt my heart racing with each lie she spun, and something inside me snapped. "You don't get to play the victim here, Sarah. I was the one who was wounded, who needed support. I was the one who fought for us. And you betrayed me when I needed you the most." She sat there, shoulders shaking as sobs tore through her. I knew she was hurting, but at that moment all I could feel was a rush of anger. I had devoted myself to her, and now I stood before a person who felt like a complete stranger. "I can't do this anymore," I said, my voice steady but choked with emotion. I can't be with someone who doesn't value what we had. I have to think about my own healing, and I can't do that with the very person who hurt me still in my life." Her eyes widened in shock. "What do you mean? Are you saying you want a divorce?" "I don't know if I'm ready for that, but I need space. I need time to figure out who I am without you," I replied, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. I had finally found my voice amidst the chaos. I didn't want to hate her. I wanted to mourn what we had lost and find a way to heal. Watching her crumble was bittersweet. I didn't want to hurt her, but I couldn't ignore my own pain either. I turned away, needing to escape the scene that felt unbearable. I walked outside, breathing in the cool, crisp air and trying to ground myself. The world felt so vast, yet I was trapped in a moment that felt so claustrophobic. In the days that followed, I kept my distance. I focused on my recovery, leaning into the support of my fellow veterans. They helped me navigate my feelings, reminding me that I wasn't alone in this fight. I found solace in the brotherhood, and while the pain of betrayal still lingered, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I began exploring what life could look like outside of my marriage. I spent time hiking, reconnecting with nature, and rediscovering my love for old hobbies that I had neglected over the years. I reconnected with friends who had fallen by the wayside during my marriage, and slowly but surely, I started to build a life for myself again. But even amidst the healing, my mind would drift back to Sarah. I often wondered how she was coping without me, if she was feeling regret, or if she was simply moving on. I felt a mix of anger and sadness that I couldn't shake off completely. How could she betray our love so easily? I thought about reaching out, perhaps to have a conversation that might bring closure, but each time I debated it, I felt that familiar pain welling up. I had to remind myself that this was not just about her. It was about me reclaiming my life, my identity, and my strength. Through the heartache, I learned something valuable. Healing doesn't happen overnight. It requires time, patience, and the willingness to confront the reality of your situation. I had to confront my own fears, my own vulnerabilities, and ultimately my own worth. As I began to accept what happened, I was struck by a profound realization. This betrayal, while deeply painful, could also be a catalyst for growth. I didn't want to remain a victim of my circumstances. I wanted to emerge from this stronger, and with a clearer understanding of what I truly valued in life and relationships. With that in mind, I decided to continue focusing on myself and my recovery. I was determined to move forward, to heal properly and rediscover who I was, both as a veteran and as a man. The road ahead was daunting, but at least it was a road I was ready to travel alone. As the weeks turned into months, I carved out a new routine. My body was healing, and so was my heart, albeit slowly. I found a sense of freedom that I hadn't known in years, a chance to rediscover who I was without Sarah. I started attending group therapy sessions at the VA hospital, each meeting a blend of camaraderie and shared experiences. The veterans around me became a lifeline, their stories of loss and resilience resonating with my own feelings of betrayal and heartache. The first time I shared my story, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I spoke about Sarah, about the affair, and the turmoil that followed. There was an understanding in the room, a bond formed through shared struggles. My fellow veterans listened intently, and I could see their empathy reflected in their eyes. It felt good to voice my pain, to let it out instead of keeping it bottled up inside. Each session brought a new layer of healing, a step closer to reclaiming my sense of self. Meanwhile, Sarah had been trying to reach out to me. I received texts and calls, each one a plea for conversation, for some kind of reconciliation. But I was resolute. I needed space to heal, and I couldn't afford to be pulled back into the chaos of our past. I had learned that her understanding of love had become twisted by her choices, and I wasn't sure if I could ever trust her again. One afternoon, while sitting in the park with some of my veteran friends, I received another message from her. "Can we talk? I really need to explain myself." My heart raced, and I hesitated before responding. Part of me wanted to hear her out, to understand her perspective. But the other part of me screamed to protect what little healing I had achieved. After a long internal battle, I decided to meet her. I arranged to meet at a cafe, a neutral ground where we could talk. As the day approached, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. What would she say? Did she even realize the depth of her betrayal? When I arrived, I saw her sitting at a small table, her gaze fixed on the cup of coffee in front of her. She looked different, darker circles under her eyes, a haunted look on her face. It was strange to see her like this. The confident, carefree woman I had known had been replaced by someone weighed down by regret. "Hey," I said, taking a seat across from her. There was an awkward silence as we both took a moment to gather our thoughts. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice trembling. "I know things have been difficult between us, and I'm really sorry for everything. I can't express how much I regret what I did." I studied her, searching for sincerity in her eyes. "Regret doesn't change the past, Sarah. You made a choice that affected not just you, but me as well." "I know," she replied, tears brimming in her eyes, "but I've spent so much time reflecting on my actions. I was so caught up in my own fears that I didn't stop to think about how it would hurt you. I never wanted to hurt you, I promise." Her words tugged at something deep inside me, but I couldn't let my guard down just yet. "It's not just about the moment, Sarah. It's about trust. You destroyed the foundation of our relationship when you chose to be with someone else." "I understand that," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "But I've been in therapy myself, trying to figure out why I did what I did. I've been working on myself, and I just want a chance to make things right." "A chance?" I echoed, incredulous. "You had your chance. You chose to betray me when I needed you most. I was vulnerable, recovering from my wounds, and you turned away from me." Her face fell, and I could see the pain reflected back at me. It was a painful reminder of the person I once loved, now reduced to someone desperately seeking forgiveness. "I know I messed up. I don't expect you to just forgive and forget, but I'm asking you to let me show you that I can be better. I want to work on this on us." I felt a surge of anger mixed with sadness. The thought of rekindling our relationship felt impossible. "What makes you think I can trust you again? You broke my heart, Sarah. Do you understand what that feels like?" "Of course I do," she replied, her voice breaking. "I've been living with that guilt every day. I don't want to lose you. I want to make this right, to rebuild what we had." Her words hung in the air, heavy with unfulfilled promises. I wanted to believe her, to hope that maybe we could find a way back to each other, but doubt gnawed at me. I remembered the pain, the betrayal, and how hard I had fought to reclaim my own identity outside of her shadow. "I need more time," I finally said. "I'm still trying to heal. I don't know if we can go back to what we had, and I'm not sure if I even want to." She nodded, the tears spilling down her cheeks. "I understand. Just know that I'm here for you whenever you're ready." I left the cafe feeling a mix of emotions. I had wanted to hear her out to find closure, but instead I felt more tangled than ever. I was still angry, still hurt, and the thought of rebuilding a relationship felt like an uphill battle. Over the next few days, I reflected on our conversation. I couldn't deny that a part of me had hoped for some semblance of the love we once shared, but reality was harsh. The truth was, every time I thought of Sarah, I was reminded of the betrayal that had shattered my trust. Could I truly forgive her, or was it healthier to let go and move on? As I continued my recovery, I leaned into my therapy sessions and the support of my friends. I started participating in veteran community events, where I found inspiration from others who had faced their own demons. Their stories reminded me that healing was a journey, one that required strength and determination. I began to find closure in my own journey. I started focusing on building a future for myself, one that didn't revolve around Sarah. I explored new hobbies, taking art classes and trying my hand at painting, something I had always wanted to do but had never pursued. It was liberating to express my emotions through art, to create something beautiful from the pain I had endured. Little by little, I felt my confidence returning. I was no longer just surviving, I was thriving. I realized that I was capable of standing on my own, independent of the relationship that had once defined me. I found solace not just in my recovery, but also in the knowledge that I could reclaim my life, my identity, and my happiness. While Sarah remained an echo of my past, I was determined to carve out a future that was solely mine. I understood that moving on wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to embrace the challenges ahead. It was time to step into the light, leaving behind the shadows of the past, and finally begin to heal in a way that honored the true service of my journey. As I continued to forge my path forward, I realized that healing was not a linear process. There were days when I felt empowered, ready to take on the world, and then there were days when the weight of betrayal would crash down upon me like a tidal wave. I thought I had come to terms with everything, but moments of deep sadness would still creep in, reminding me of the love I had lost. One evening, while I was painting in my small studio, I received a text from one of my buddies at the VA, Jake. He invited me to a weekend camping trip with some of the guys. The thought of spending time in nature, away from the chaos of my life, sounded rejuvenating. I hadn't spent much time outdoors since returning from the hospital, and the idea of reconnecting with my friends felt appealing. I hesitated at first. Part of me worried about running into Sarah. I knew she often frequented the same outdoor spots, volunteering with veterans and their families. But I couldn't let that fear dictate my life any longer. I accepted the invitation, ready to embrace the brotherhood I had found solace in during my recovery. When the weekend arrived, I packed my gear and set off with Jake and a few other veterans. The drive to the campsite was filled with laughter and camaraderie, something I hadn't realized I desperately needed. As we arrived and set up camp, I felt a sense of belonging wash over me, a reminder of the bonds forged through shared experiences and struggles. That night, after a long day of hiking and sharing stories around the campfire, I found myself feeling lighter than I had in a long time. I listened to my friends recount their own battles, their struggles to return to normalcy after serving. It was cathartic to laugh, to share in the understanding that we were all fighting our own demons. As the fire crackled and the stars twinkled above us, I felt a shift within myself. For the first time in a long while, I realized that while Sarah had hurt me deeply, I wasn't defined by that pain. I could find joy again, even amidst the heartache. The next day, we hiked deeper into the woods. The fresh air invigorated me, and I felt a connection to nature that I had missed. As we trekked along the trails, I shared some of my experiences with the group, including my struggles with Sarah's affair. To my surprise, they didn't offer pity or judgment. Instead, they provided understanding and support. Each story shared was a reminder that I wasn't alone in this fight. On the final night of our trip, we gathered around the fire once more, a deep sense of camaraderie enveloping us. It was then that I decided to share my painting journey. I spoke about how art had become my outlet, how it helped me process my emotions. I even mentioned my newfound love for capturing nature on canvas. As I spoke, I could see the interest in their eyes. Jake turned to me and said, "You should bring some of your paintings to the next Veterans Art Show. It sounds like you found a powerful way to express yourself." The idea ignited a spark within me. I hadn't thought about showcasing my work or sharing it with others. It felt incredibly freeing, and I could sense that it might be a step toward moving on and reclaiming my worth. When we returned from the trip, I felt rejuvenated and inspired. I spent the next few weeks preparing for the art show, pouring my emotions into my paintings. Each stroke of the brush became a cathartic release, a way to express the pain, anger, and ultimately the hope I had found in my recovery. But just as I was beginning to feel empowered, Sarah reached out again. This time, she asked if we could meet to talk about our future. I felt a conflict brewing within me. Part of me wanted to hear her out, to see if there was a way to rebuild trust, while the other part of me feared being pulled back into the darkness. I thought about my brotherhood, the support I had found, and how I had slowly begun to rediscover myself. I knew I had to be firm in my decision. I agreed to meet her, but on my terms. We would meet in a public place, a coffee shop where I felt safe. As I prepared for our meeting, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. I wanted to walk into that cafe with clarity, ready to confront the reality of our situation. I had worked hard to reclaim my life, and I wouldn't let fear dictate my choices any longer. When I arrived, Sarah was already there, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. I could see that she was nervous, fidgeting with her hands as I approached. "Hey," she said softly, her gaze dropping to the table. "Let's get straight to it," I replied, my tone firm. "I'm not here to relive the past. I want to know what you think we can do moving forward." She took a deep breath, her expression shifting to one of seriousness. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realize now that I need to take responsibility for my actions. I was selfish and scared, and I hurt you in the process. I want to make amends, but I also understand that it may be too late." "I appreciate you saying that," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "But you have to understand that trust is not something that can be given back easily. I've spent so much time healing, and now I'm in a place where I feel stronger, more independent than I ever have. I don't want to go back to the way things were." "I don't want that either," she said quickly. "I've realized that I need to work on myself first before we can even think about a future together. I'm in therapy, and I'm committed to being a better person. I just want you to know that I'm here for you no matter what." "I'm glad you're working on yourself," I said, feeling a mix of pride and sadness. "But I need to be clear. I'm not ready to jump back into a relationship. I don't know if I can trust you again. I need time to process everything." Her expression fell, but she nodded in understanding. "I get that. I just hope that one day we can find a way to rebuild our relationship. I'll wait as long as it takes." As I left the cafe, I felt a rush of emotions. It was a difficult conversation, but it was also liberating. I hadn't given her false hope. I had set boundaries for myself. I knew that I was not obligated to rush into forgiveness or reconciliation. I needed to focus on my healing. That night, I returned to my studio and poured my feelings into my painting. I painted the sunset over a tranquil lake, vibrant colors blending together, symbolizing the beauty that could emerge from darkness. It was a reminder of my journey, of the battles I had fought, and the strength I had discovered within myself. In the days that followed, I continued to work on my therapy, my art, and my friendships. I learned to embrace the uncertainty of the future while staying grounded in the present. I realized that healing was a process, one that required patience and self-compassion. And as I prepared for the upcoming art show, I felt hopeful. I was ready to showcase my work and share my story with others. I knew that whatever happened with Sarah, I had already come so far, and I was proud of the person I had become. I was no longer defined by the betrayal. I was defined by my resilience, my strength, and my ability to rise from the ashes. The journey was far from over, but I felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. I had found my voice again, and as I stood in front of my canvas, I understood that my story was still being written. And for once, I was eager to see how it would unfold. The day of the art show arrived, and I felt a mix of excitement and nerves swirling inside me. This wasn't just about showcasing my work. It was a celebration of my healing journey, a testament to the struggles I had faced and the growth I had achieved. I arrived early at the venue, a community center bustling with energy as veterans and their families gathered for the event. As I set up my paintings, I felt a swell of pride. Each piece represented a chapter of my story, each brush stroke a reflection of my emotions. There was the calming sunset over the lake, a vibrant interpretation of my journey through pain and into hope. Then there were landscapes of mountains and forests, symbolizing the challenges I had faced and the strength I gained through my recovery. I wanted others to see my journey through my art. As the event kicked off, visitors began to stroll through the gallery, admiring the various works on display. I engaged with fellow veterans, sharing stories and connecting over our mutual experiences. It felt good to be part of a community that understood the complexities of healing. But as the evening progressed, I noticed Sarah enter the room. Her presence sent a rush of emotions through me: anxiety, anger, sadness, and even a hint of nostalgia. She looked beautiful yet fragile, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. I felt my heart race. I had prepared myself for this moment, but nothing could have fully prepared me for the reality of facing her again. I took a deep breath and walked over, bracing myself for whatever conversation would unfold. "Hey," I said awkwardly, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Hey," she replied, her voice soft. "I just wanted to say how proud I am of you. Your work is incredible." "Thanks," I said, appreciating the compliment but feeling the weight of our complicated history. It means a lot coming from you. We stood in silence for a moment, surrounded by the vibrant colors of my paintings. I know this is an odd time to talk, but I wanted to apologize again, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been doing a lot of soul searching, and I realize how much I hurt you. I hope you can see how genuinely sorry I am. I nodded, my heart heavy. I appreciate that, but you have to understand that I'm still processing everything. I'm not ready to dive into old wounds. I know, she said, tears glimmering in her eyes. I just wanted you to see that I'm trying to be better. I want you to be happy whether that's with me or not. Her words struck me. Did she really mean it, or was this just another attempt to ease her conscience? I couldn't answer that question, but I felt a flicker of hope mixed with uncertainty. I want to be happy, too, I replied, choosing my words carefully. But I need to find that happiness within myself first. This journey has been about rebuilding my own identity, independent of anyone else. I completely understand, she said, her voice trembling. I just hope we find a way to support each other, no matter what that looks like. I felt a surge of conflicting emotions. I wanted to believe her, but the scars of betrayal ran deep. Let's take it one step at a time, I said. I'm not shutting the door completely, but we need to respect where we both are right now. She nodded, and I could see the mixture of relief and sadness wash over her. Thank you for being honest, she said, and I could hear the sincerity in her voice. As we mingled throughout the evening, I shared my art and stories with other attendees, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah was always just a few steps behind me. She would occasionally interject with supportive comments or compliments to others about my work, and each time she did, I felt a strange mix of pride and heartache. I was ready to confront the complexities of our relationship, but I also couldn't deny that there was a part of me that still cared for her. As the night wound down, I took a moment to step outside for some fresh air. The cool breeze brushed against my face, and I closed my eyes, allowing myself a moment to breathe. I felt a sense of accomplishment. I had taken a huge step in sharing my story and my art with others, but that moment of peace was interrupted when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see Sarah standing at the door, her expression serious. "Can we talk privately for a minute?" she asked. I hesitated but nodded, leading her to a quieter corner away from the festivities. The tension between us felt thick, and I could sense the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. "I've been thinking a lot about what I said earlier," she began, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I know I messed up, and I want to make things right. But more than that, I want to understand you. I want to know how you really feel." I took a deep breath, feeling the gravity of the moment. "It's complicated, Sarah. I'm still angry, still hurt. What you did shattered my trust. I've worked hard to heal, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to dive back into our past." "I get that," she replied, her voice softening. "But I want to show you that I can be different. I want to be someone you can count on. I miss you and I miss us." Her words hit me hard. I had spent so long trying to move forward, yet here was Sarah, reminding me of the love we once shared. It was tempting to think about a future together, but I knew I needed to be cautious. Trust was not something that could be rebuilt overnight. "I need time," I said firmly. "I'm not ready to jump back into anything. I have to focus on my own healing first." "I understand that," she said, nodding. "I just needed you to know how I feel. I'll be here when you're ready to talk more." As she walked away, I felt a mix of emotions swirling within me. I was proud of myself for standing firm, but there was also a lingering sense of sadness. The love we once had was still there, but it was interwoven with pain and betrayal, a tangled web that would take time to untangle. The art show had been a success, and I had felt a sense of fulfillment in sharing my work. But as I drove home that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that my journey was far from over. I was beginning to understand that healing wasn't just about moving on. It was about learning to embrace the complexities of my emotions, both good and bad. As I lay in bed that night, I reflected on the day's events. I had taken steps toward reclaiming my identity, but I also had to acknowledge the reality of my relationship with Sarah. There was uncertainty ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope. I was ready to face whatever came next, whether that meant reestablishing a friendship with Sarah or continuing to build a life independent of her. In the end, I realized that healing was a journey, one that required patience and resilience. I had come so far, and while I didn't know what the future held, I was finally ready to embrace it with an open heart. It was time to continue writing my story, this time on my own terms. In the weeks that followed the art show, I found myself in a state of introspection and growth. The conversations with Sarah had been difficult but necessary. They forced me to confront the depths of my emotions regarding our relationship. I realized that while I had come a long way in my healing journey, I had to navigate the tangled remnants of our past carefully. I continued to paint, using the canvas as an outlet for my feelings. Each piece became a reflection of my journey, celebrating not just the pain, but also the strength I had discovered within myself. My art evolved, infused with the vibrancy of hope and resilience. I began exploring new themes, focusing on light breaking through darkness, representing the duality of my experiences. One afternoon, I received an unexpected phone call from Jake. "Hey man, I know you're busy with your art and everything, but there's a veterans retreat coming up next month. It's a chance for us to connect with nature and share stories. I think it could be really beneficial for you," he said. The idea intrigued me. I had been focusing on my own healing, but the prospect of reconnecting with my fellow veterans in a more profound setting felt appealing. It was an opportunity to reflect, bond, and perhaps even find closure. I agreed to join, eager to see how this experience might further my journey. As the retreat approached, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. I was ready to re-engage with my brothers in arms, but part of me was still grappling with my feelings for Sarah. I had set boundaries, but the thought of her lingered in the back of my mind. I wondered if she was continuing her own journey towards self-improvement or if she was still wallowing in regret. The retreat was held in a scenic location, surrounded by mountains and lush forests. As soon as I arrived, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The air was crisp, and the sounds of nature enveloped me like a warm embrace. I reunited with Jake and several other veterans, all of us sharing our stories and experiences around the campfire each night. During one of our discussions, I opened up about my journey and the emotional turmoil I had experienced since Sarah's betrayal. "It's hard to let go of the past," I admitted. "I want to move on, but I still feel hurt. It's like I'm stuck between wanting to forgive her and needing to protect myself." Jake nodded thoughtfully. "It's okay to feel that way. Healing isn't a straight path, it's full of twists and turns. You have to give yourself grace and time. If you're ready to forgive, do it for yourself, not for her." His words resonated deeply. I hadn't considered the act of forgiveness as a form of self-care. It wasn't about absolving Sarah of her actions. It was about freeing myself from the burden of anger and disappointment. I realized that holding onto the past only served to weigh me down. As the days in the retreat unfolded, I spent time reflecting in nature, painting the landscapes around me, and engaging in deep conversations with my fellow veterans. The shared experiences created a bond that ran deeper than I had anticipated. Each story shared was a reminder that we were all fighting our own battles, trying to heal from wounds both visible and invisible. On the last night of the retreat, we gathered around the campfire one last time. The stars twinkled overhead, and I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the connections I had formed. As we shared our final thoughts, I felt compelled to speak. "I've been through a lot in recent months," I began, my voice steady. "And while I still carry the hurt from my past, I'm learning to forgive, not just Sarah, but myself as well. I want to move forward, and I realize that healing means letting go of the anger that has burdened me for so long." The group fell silent, each person absorbing my words. "Thank you all for being here, for sharing your stories and supporting one another. It's a reminder that we're not alone in this journey. I'm grateful to each of you for helping me find my voice again." As the fire crackled and the night deepened, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. I had taken significant steps toward healing, and for the first time I felt hopeful about the future. Upon returning home, I felt different, lighter, more centered. The retreat had reignited my spirit and given me clarity about my path forward. I decided to reach out to Sarah once more, not out of obligation, but from a place of understanding. I wanted to see how she was doing, to perhaps rebuild a friendship based on mutual respect. We agreed to meet at the same cafe where we had shared our difficult conversation months prior. When I saw her, the nervousness in her eyes mirrored my own. "I've missed you," she said softly. "I've been working on myself and I hope you found some peace." "I have," I replied, taking a seat. "The retreat helped me a lot. I've been reflecting on my feelings and what I need moving forward." She looked at me, her expression hopeful yet uncertain. "I would love for us to be friends again, but I understand if that's not where you're at yet." "I think we can start there," I said, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. "But it's going to take time. Trust has to be rebuilt, and I need to prioritize my own healing above all." "I completely understand," Sarah replied, her voice steady. "I'm here for you whenever you're ready." As we talked, I could see that we were both committed to honoring our individual journeys. This was not about rekindling a romantic relationship. It was about forging a new connection based on honesty and mutual respect. As the months rolled on, I continued to paint, participate in veteran gatherings, and nurture the friendships I had built. Sarah and I began to meet occasionally, sharing updates about our lives and supporting each other in our respective healing journeys. Forgiveness didn't happen overnight, but I felt lighter with each step forward. I learned that healing is not just about moving on. It's about embracing the complexities of relationships, accepting the past, and finding peace in the present. Looking back, I realized that my journey was not defined solely by betrayal. It was also about resilience, growth, and the strength to reclaim my life. I understood that I was capable of overcoming adversity and that healing was a continuous process, a journey worth pursuing. As I stood in front of my easel, brush in hand, I felt a sense of liberation. I was ready to paint my next piece, a representation of hope. Emerging from darkness, the canvas was a reflection of my life, an evolving story of healing, renewal, and the beauty of new beginnings. And as I began to create, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought me here, one that was uniquely mine.